Have you ever wondered why Roy's characterization is so inconsistent across the Fire Emblem series? I mean this in a genuine way. I still don't know the answer as to why this is the case. Let me show you guys what I mean exactly by Roy's inconsistency across his characterization. To start off, we need to think about Roy appearing in the Smash games over in the West for the first time as kind of like a promotion for the Fire Emblem series itself. In that game, he basically is a Echo Fighter of Marth. He has a little bit different skill set in which he has some explosive tech. He has also like a situation in which the center of his blade does more damage than the tip of his blade. Kind of like a contrast to what Marth is in that game. When we think about Roy's game, FE6, Roy has none of the characteristics displayed that exist in the Smash games whatsoever. He's not really known as being a renowned fighter. He's not really known as being a good hero. Granted, there wasn't a lot going on in Super Smash Bros. At the time that could link those two, but still, he was a character that was very, very bland right off the bat in his own game, not really taking center stage until much, much later on in the story. He does actually possess an identity, and that does come to light more close to the end of the game, especially with his interactions with Tydoon. But for the most of the game, he's just kind of this bland insert that just goes around doing what people told him to do, doesn't really have a purpose, and just kind of gets guided toward the objective. Then more Smash games came out, and every single time Roy would appear, it usually was the same. Roy was more of like the heavy, hard-hitting fighter, whereas Marth was more of like the finesse character, like the blade dancer type style. Again, none of this really shows any characterization whatsoever, because Smash doesn't really do a good job at characterizing some of their characters. They're just there as a fighting game. But at the same time, it does bode the question, where is this idea that Roy is heavy hitting coming from? The Binding Blade is interesting itself with the explosive properties that it also shows in the game, but it's just not consistent with the type of person Roy is. Like, Roy is basically a small teenager or like a young teenager, but in every iteration he appears more like a young adult teen, or kind of like a little bit older, like 16, 17, as opposed to what he appears to be in the game, which is around like 14 or 12. So it's very strange to continuously see these different iterations of Roy, even though they're all supposed to represent the same character. But if that isn't enough of a mess, then comes Fire Emblem Heroes. And finally they do one thing right, which is they give Roy, the character in the game, the first base Roy that you can get, balanced stats all across. He's just mediocre on every single front. He just has equivalent stats all across, not really shining or being an example of like great specified unit, super specific. He's just bland and mediocre all across, which is finally an accurate representation of what he is in his own game. But then more alts start to come out, and now it feels like IAS doesn't really know what to do with Roy. They don't know if they put him in a role of this fantastic leader that needs guidance, or of this strong warrior that can push forward and liberate Licia from the throes of burn, or they don't really know what to do with Roy. They never know what to do with Roy. It's almost like Roy just keeps on taking different personalities of whoever the hell is at the riding helm at that moment in time. Think about Engage. This is where it really gets strange. In Engage, Roy is the emblem of strength. That doesn't even make any more sense either. He comes with a weird skill set in which he has Hold Out, which prevents him from dying, but in his own game he gets one-rounded very easily by most of the enemies towards the end of the game. I guess Hold Out is how long he takes to get to his promotion, that's why he's holding out for it, because it doesn't really make sense there either. Also, this colossal strength that Roy confers doesn't even make sense within the own game itself. He doesn't have a phenomenal strength stat. Again, he's a middling stat unit all across. It doesn't really correlate to what he is in the game. And in Engage, his characterization as a Bond unit makes no sense either too. He talks about the most varied of subjects with no actual focus on what the topics are. He can talk about anything from meat to tea to flowers. He just doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's just a random spouter of nonsense to whoever asks him. And it just doesn't quite make sense for me that that would be the personification of Roy that we've come to see across the Fire Emblem series. It just doesn't quite add up as to why is Roy in a situation where nobody can really get a pulse on this guy's personality. Nobody can get a pulse. No matter what iteration it is, it seems like every single time he appears, he has a different appearance, he has a different setup, he has a different class, he has a different stat line, he has a different objective in the game. And I just really want to know. This video was supposed to kind of just shine a light to this, but I want to know down below, do you guys know why? I really want to know why. Why is it that Roy does not have a characterization that is consistent across his appearances in Fire Emblem itself? Do you think it's due maybe to the fact that he's a bland character in his original game? Do you think that maybe I'm overthinking it and the writers don't really care about him at all and that we don't even know why that's the case? Or do we think that perhaps they just don't know what they want Roy to be and that's why we continuously see things like this? Well, anyway, let me know down in the comments below. I would really like to see it. And thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.